Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective.
Good afternoon, everybody, or morning if you're in Central, Mountain, or even Pacific times. My name is Justin Fensterman, and welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Again, you know me, you've seen me every single Wednesday. I'm with you guys at noon Eastern. Ray Flowers does Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. This is a free stream here, but you can go to fantasyguru.com, and right now for just $65, the rest of football season, seasonal DFS content, and also wagering too. So that's there for all of you at the good old FG, and you get that through the playoffs. So betting DFS through the playoffs too, as we've reached this point of a big time critical moment in the NFL season. Why? Because it's week 16. Who's pumped up? Who's ready for their semifinal? Who's ready to get those rings? You fought this hard for this long. We have things to deal with, as we always do at this time. We've got quarterback changes. How is it going to impact our options? Well, we're going to be talking with Rich Maletto from FantasyGuru.com in a little bit about some streamers for the week too, in case you're dealing with some injuries, including maybe a David Montgomery that you just lost. Is there a running back that you could plug and play? Maybe you do have that running back, but now your flex all of a sudden is in flux, and that is where we come in at FantasyGuru.com. So you see it right there, $65 for everything football through the playoffs when you sign up at the website FantasyGuru.com. I do a lot of NBA work, so I'll start by saying right now that there are no NBA games. Normally I split the stream between NBA and NFL, and as NFL starts to, I don't want to say go away, it never really does, but as the season ends and the playoffs are rolling, then I'm going to be doing even more NBA content so I can make sure you know everything that we have to offer here at FantasyGuru.com. And that's why I'm here to show that versatility, as it's not just football, basketball, baseball, hockey. It's not just the four majors, but we do everything from MMA to PGA to NASCAR. We've got it all for you, and our Discord is always on fire. That's where I post a lot of my NBA bets, but then it transposes right onto the website there when you go to the betting section. I've talked about the NBA tools as well, that you could use, the prop tools and also the total tools from our guy, Rob Brink, the model, doing a great job with that. Something that's been added to the NBA coverage that's been awesome and very on point. I'm constantly studying the trends, and unfortunately, sometimes the trends don't necessarily lead you to the gold. For instance, in the Cup final, Oklahoma City, and this is the only thing I'll say about basketball, and then we're going to be doing football the rest of the way, because it was a tough night with the Elite Mafia when it came to betting. Thought I had this game figured out. I thought OKC was by far and away the better team than Milwaukee. Milwaukee's defense doesn't hold a candle to what Oklahoma City can bring, even against bigs with a lack of size. So for someone like me, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what is going on with this Thunder team? Why is Milwaukee in complete control? But the Thunder didn't come out shooting well. I don't know, maybe they had a little bit too much fun at the craps tables in Vegas. Why? Because they completely crapped out. They had no offense. They shot under 40% as a team, could barely hit threes. And what's funny about all that, it's the Thunder that prevent a lot of threes. So that's why we had it down to pat when it came to misses and rebounding opportunities, but it just did not come true there. So Wednesday, no watch along Wednesday tonight because there are no NBA games. And then next week is Christmas, Hanukkah, no watch along Wednesday then either, as games will be scattered throughout the day. But then we will pick up watch along Wednesday. We will pick it back up again in the new year in 2025. And I hope to see all of you there. It's kind of like me hanging in the Fantasy Guru DFS NBA Discord. It's office hours essentially. And what I do is I just talk about what I'm seeing, what I'm liking. I write some game notes in there. I write down a lot of things, just free-flowing thoughts as I'm watching these games, because it helps me not only remember when I go back and find the consistent patterns of what I'm seeing versus what I'm reading about when looking up the analytics. And that's why I am so into watching these games and not just box score surfing. It takes a lot more time, but that's what you have to do in order to get the best results and in order to make sure your research is paying off. That's at least in my opinion. We'll take some of your fantasy football questions too, but to end the basketball discussion, despite no NBA games, no article tonight, no betting tonight, no watch along Wednesday tonight, I am going to have a new episode out of Fensty's Basketball Diaries, the podcast I do for the site. And I've been going division by division, talking about which players I think I have figured out from a DFS side and a player prop standpoint, and talking about the teams. So going to be doing some Northwest Division content and also talking more in depth in general about what's been working when finding the trends for betting and what really just hasn't been working in certain changes that I'm going to be making as we now have the consistency there. So fantasy football, week 16, let's talk about it. Michael Penix at this point, as someone who has 2 shares of Drake London, I don't know what the hell to think. I'm not going to overthink it or anything, because this isn't just the Falcons are giving up on the season. This is the Falcons are in a playoff race right now, a 500 team, and you're talking about when it comes down to what they're looking at. I just think that when it comes to Atlanta, while they're still in this playoff race, to me, I feel like this is a move because they've got confidence in this guy and that he can help out a little bit more on the offensive attack than Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has looked awful. And here's part of the problem I'm a little bit worried about with Michael Penix now. One of Penix's weaknesses is throwing into traffic, essentially. And it's like in the NBA, making that cross-court pass. And too many of them, what happens, it's going to get intercepted. The guy likes to throw into crowds. And from everything I've read, from the tape that I've watched on him, I'm trying and look, you can only find so much when it comes to his old condensed games. But at the same time, when I'm watching him, he has excellent arm strength. And that's part of it right there, because they got to do more than run the football, and they got to get some kind of consistency there. They have to find ways to hit Darnell Mooney and do it in a consistent way. And if we were talking about the situation with, let's just say, the Cleveland Browns, because this sucks for fantasy too. And I know that it's been talked about whether you've been hanging with Ray Flowers on this stream or you've been listening to Pappy Mans, Uncle Jeffy, Jeff Mans, on the Elite Sports Show on Sirius XM, Fantasy Sports Radio, Sirius XM Channel 87, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, anytime you want on that app at your pleasure too, talking about how much this really stinks. And I heard Jeff Mans and Phil Backert, Sandro Anello yesterday on the show talking about Kirk Cousins and just how bad Kirk Cousins is. Is this it maybe for Kirk Cousins at this point? So Kirk Cousins has looked awful. So yeah, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but the fact that the Falcons, a capable NFL franchise, because you wouldn't just do anything stupid if this guy wasn't ready. You're not going to force him in there. Clearly, they think Penix is ready in Atlanta. And Penix is going to maybe lead them right into the postseason. But they're sitting there at 7-7 right now, and second place in their division, 1 game behind the Buccaneers in the NFC South. So it's interesting that they're making this move, going from a vet at this point. They're just not happy with that offense. Maybe it works better for someone like London, but this is a pocket passer. This is what we're talking about here. When we have to worry about whether he's going to take off a bunch of times, I don't think we have to with Penix. And what Penix is also good at, from what I've been reading, to pressure, figuring out when pressure is coming, anticipating the pressure. And if he has enough space and he has enough time, an extra second or two, he's going to be able to zip the ball right down that field. So they wouldn't be doing this with a potential playoff berth on the line. They didn't think he was ready to go. They drafted him for a reason. He is that future. So when it comes to Michael Penix, I'm very intrigued because this is a very big week. And we're going to have to see how the Atlanta Falcons do with Michael Penix starting ahead of Kirk Cousins. When it comes to Dorian Thompson-Robinson and the Browns, I mean, from the little we've seen, yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking because not only are we dealing with that from that end, because this is a situation where the Browns at this point just don't give a crap. They're a 3-win team. But also there's some options on the line that have been performing well for us, despite Jameis Winston. The thing with Jameis Winston is maybe you don't want to look at him as the quarterback itself all the time, but his options when it comes to who he's throwing to, he's still going to throw and throw and throw. Well, now Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Nick Chubb being out, he's going to still throw a decent amount. But now you start to worry about other options like David Njoku, who's dealing with his hamstring injury. We'll have to see if he ends up playing. Jerry Jeudy, who's been nice, very nice. And by the way, I actually, in a league or two, there were a few leagues there where we were picking him up off the waiver wire earlier this year. So that's what I'm a little bit more worried about the Penix situation. It would take a lot. The worst thing we can do is completely overdo it. And that's another situation that I want to talk about here, and that's Travis Kelce. I'm sure there are a few of you out there that are really pissed off, and you have every right to be about Travis Kelce's performance here. Look, he can only do so much. The guy's got to get open. He's clearly older, but it wouldn't be as painful if A, the Chiefs had all of their options healthy, and B, Noah Gray wasn't stealing meaningful catches and even touchdowns. Because if you look at what Travis Kelce has done all season, 2 touchdowns, not going to cut the mustard unless he's catching 7 passes. That's what it takes to get this guy to double figures in PPR. He's not getting into the end zone. It's sad. But the one thing I am encouraged about is that I'm encouraged that he's still getting the targets. 8+ in 3 of his last 4 games. Okay. Hollywood Brown getting healthier. Little bit scary. You don't, at this point, want someone else taking away from him, added to the mix. But I think down the stretch, and the Chiefs have a bigger problem than that we'll talk about in a second, pretty obvious. But Travis Kelce, very hard to trust him right now, but he's still getting those targets. Can we trust the health, though, of Patrick Mahomes' ankle? Because when it comes to his ankle, I mean, he wasn't restricted in practice yesterday. So, I mean, that's what we're looking at right now. And remember, you might be a little bit confused about who's practicing and who's not. Not only do you have Thursday football, you have Saturday football. You have 4 days of football this week, 2 games on Saturday. So make sure that when making your weekend plans, you write some kind of reminder, because it's easy to forget when you're in a constant routine for 4 or 5 months. Make sure that you set a reminder to set your lineups, or at least check that your lineups are set before the Saturday games begin. And that's including, and I don't even think I have to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, making sure that the right players are in the right spots. You should not care how your roster physically looks on paper when you're entering your matchups. Oh, here are the few better receivers, so these are my top guys, so I'm putting them in the receiver spot. Wrong. You need to keep your flex options open. You have to. And when you're keeping your flex spots open, you're protecting yourself against Saturday practice downgrades, let's just say. We've seen it happen before. Someone gets sick. It is winter time. Someone gets sick. Their endurance is down. They can't play. All of a sudden, now what are you going to do? If you don't have the depth at whatever position that is, at least if you keep your flex spots open until that time, then, like they're called, you have the flexibility to be able to move in and out. You don't want to be in a position where you barely have any depth at running back, and all of a sudden, let's just say, you play, now it's Sunday morning, and you've already put your flex options in motion, and they've played 3 games in now. It's Sunday morning, and now you're rushing to the waiver wire trying to hope for a prayer that's likely not there, then it puts you in a bad spot. So maybe you don't have as many running backs, but you've got wide receivers. Keep those flex spots open. Keep those flex spots open. Before I get to some of your questions and before we bring on Rich Maletto in a little bit, something else I want to talk about, and I brought this up a few months ago, and that's next week. I know we're focused on the now, but want to say to all of you fantasy commissioners out there, you've got an interesting situation next week because you got a game on Christmas. And when you've got Wednesday football, well, you got 2 games on Wednesday. And because you've got the 2 games on Wednesday, if you're in a league where waivers are passing through Wednesday into Thursday, you may want to talk to your commissioner, or if you're a commissioner, you may want to go to those league mates that are in the finals or even the semifinals by then and ask them for a consensus to move waivers to Tuesday. I don't know if you could do that on the site. I don't think you'll be able to. It might be something manual, but it's definitely something to think about at this point, because otherwise you're not going to have access to 4 teams worth of players. Who knows what's going to happen? We can have 8 or 9 meaningful injuries where, yeah, maybe no broken bones, but strains, pulls that take longer than a week to heal up from. It's just something to think about if you're a fantasy commissioner. My league still does waivers Tuesdays into Wednesdays. And I know, and I think about it right now, that I want to change. But this is a little bit risky right here. Because look, I mean, at this point you can look to pick up players from those teams, but you don't know what's going to happen this week. You don't know what players from the Texans may get hurt, or the Steelers who may get hurt. And then there's someone else that could be out there where maybe you're missing a piece of depth that could be the answer. Build that bridge to the championship that you so crave. Something to think about. And that's why I wanted to make sure I brought that up before, because we're not going to have the stream next week, being Christmas, Hanukkah that day. Not going to have the stream, but still, you can always hit us up in the Discord rooms. We've got many of them. Everybody knows the famous Man's Cave, but also we've got seasonal rooms for these sports where you can get the help and you can make sure that you're updated. But you've got to stay locked in. Holiday times. Don't get into holiday mode where you're just sitting back on your fantasy teams. Don't be lazy about these situations. You fought this hard. I know that everybody's in end of the year mode. I know nobody wants to work. I know that everybody just wants to sit on their keister and watch Home Alone, watch Die Hard, debate if it's a Christmas movie or not. I get that. But we didn't get this far just to get this far. We got this far to win, because this is where winners win. It absolutely does. Fantasy Arnold. Oh, man. Fantasy Arnold, by the way, heard frequently on Sirius XM Channel 87. If this is the same Fantasy Arnold right there. That's what happens. Hey, we have a little reaction hotline during the day on Sundays that if you need to vent, you vent to the voicemail. And then I'm on Sunday nights from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. I listen to some of those voicemails, and then we replay it about your team. The more creative you get, the more famous you get to be made on Sirius XM Channel 87. When it comes to Tillman at this point with DTR, Tillman, it does impact him. It does, but we have to see first about the health and situations of some of these pass catchers, including David Njoku. And it's not a lock at this point that Tillman is going to play. So I think when it comes to target share, I think he's in a similar spot. It's not like they're loaded with pass catchers. But I think when it comes to Tillman, I mean, can Thompson Robinson hit him deep? That's going to be the big question right there. Judy's targets should be safe. But now if David Njoku is out, then a little bit more of a believer in Tillman if he passes that protocol. So still have to go through the steps of the protocol, Arnold, but that's where I stand there to see if Thompson Robinson can throw, because they're just trying to end the season at this point. Still didn't really make much sense to me. Why abandon Jameis? I know how bad it was, but you're going nowhere anyway. Just let the guy throw and throw and throw. But They're going to try out DTR. We'll see what happens there. Lonely here. Lonely asking about, let's see, start 2, wide receiver, 1 running back, a tight end. Spears, Miller, B-Rob, Jr., JMO, McLaurin, Kraft, and Strange. So this is interesting here, and I'm very interested to see what Rich Maletto has to say maybe about a Tucker Kraft, how we even view Green Bay at this point. We are going to invest in Green Bay in one area, and that is team defense. So that is an area we're going to invest in them. But let's see, out of the two running backs, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end. To me right now, as it stands, if you're asking me today, it is going to be Brian Robinson Jr. and also probably right now, going to go Spears, but that can absolutely change. Your wide receiver is going to be McLaurin, and then your tight end at this point, man, that's a toss-up right there. I think that you're going to go Strange. I mean, look, we're living off a game where he was targeted heavily there. It's another good matchup against Vegas. So I picked up Strange in a few leagues, a very popular pickup. And, of course, because with a position that's so volatile, having a guy get double-digit targets when you're looking at an offense that really doesn't have much of a direction, it's definitely very encouraging. So Lonely, that is what I am looking at there. By the way, I was actually looking at some stats over the last few weeks, some trending stats for some of these players on our fantasy teams, and even looking to see what they've done here on average in the last 4 weeks here. But somebody who's actually been very solid, and I'm looking at that tight end spot right now over the last 4 weeks. And you got to take a game out of the situation here because he did get concussed. But if he didn't get concussed, someone that's in an interesting spot, thinking that Washington is going to have to throw. Zach Ertz has been very intriguing. It's not the greatest of matchups. It's a desperate situation there. He had been getting the targets. If he is able to clear concussion protocol, that's a tight end right there. That's someone that you could potentially look at. You could, but at the same time, it's risky being in the protocol. He's going to need a lot in order to be able to get out of that by then. Outside of that, yeah, it's a lot of randos at the position here. And even seeing over the last couple of weeks, I mean, you're seeing players come through that aren't on rosters. And so that's why when it comes to the volatility of the tight end position, I'm fine in that situation going with Brenton Strange. And we'll have to see what happens when it comes to the Chargers for Thursday, because the Chargers are a little nicked up here with Disley and Stone Smart. That's another area that you could potentially go to as well. From the quarterback side over the last few weeks on average here, and just taking a look on who's been performing, it's very interesting seeing Aaron Rodgers be where he's at right now. It's almost like finally the Jets offense is putting something together, but they're going nowhere. However, for fantasy purposes, they're taking on the Rams, and after what he did to Jacksonville, I'm very interested to see what Aaron Rodgers can do against these Rams. And in fact, let's actually bring in our guest here, the man of the hour, Rich Maletto, the Fantasy Costco. What's going on, Rich? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, man? Good to. Sorry I couldn't get here a little sooner. We had a man out, so I was scrambling around in the shipping area.
No, you're normally early anyway, Rich, but I wanted to give you a little bit more time since this is a very pivotal week in fantasy football. And I was just talking about Aaron Rodgers, which is why I want to bring you in, because you are the streaming master at fantasyguru.com.
How about that?
Your article will be up a little bit later. You also have a Keeper Cut article, and I was reading through some of that, and it was almost like you're preparing us for next year already, which is interesting with some of what you're writing right now when it comes to keep or cut. And by the way, it's funny because I'm sitting there with some of these names, and you're talking about trading. There are leagues out there that actually don't have a trade deadline. And one of the things I didn't realize was actually my family league, the league that I'm in that my cousin runs, there's no trade deadline. And I messaged him, and I should have recognized that because I saw trades being made in week 14, and I freaked the F out about it because it's stupid. It's BS. It's not a dynasty league. It's not a keeper league. Like, it took me years to get this guy to not include week 18 or what used to be week 17, and now no trade deadline, man. So when you're writing your keep, cut, and drop it like it's hot article that you have currently up on the site, your streaming article will be up in a little bit. When I'm reading that, I'm just thinking of my family league because it's just, to me, so stupid that there's no trade deadline in this redraft league.
And see, that article's kind of tough this time of year because most leagues do have a trade deadline and almost all of us support one. There's a lot more debate on dynasty trade deadlines, and I understand that. You don't necessarily want a team at the bottom just giving everything away to a team on top. But at the same time, what's the difference if they do that in week 10 or if they do that in week 14, right? Like, that scenario plays out because in dynasty it works. So I took it upon myself this week to tweak the article a little bit to aim it more as a dynasty because I felt like there are leagues out there that allow trades right now, and this is a good time to take advantage of a buy low, sell high type of opportunities because you do have teams making playoff runs that are willing to pay a premium for an RB1 like a James Conner, right? At the same time, Mike Evans, if you have him and you're rebuilding, this is the time to move on. And even if you've got to take a little bit of a hit on market value, now's the time to make that change. And I'm looking ahead to next year already, and maybe I'm getting a little bit of the cart before the horse, but in Dynasty, you got to be doing that. I mean, especially if you're rebuilding, you need to be playing waivers this year for next year. Like, that's just the truth of the matter, right? And on the streaming aspect of it, look, if you're streaming right now, you're desperate, right? Injuries, there are no buys weeks, so it's been the injuries and decimation as far as that goes. So none of these guys are really guys we necessarily want to play. Maybe Jaylen McMillan. I know there's a lot of hype this week over Jaylen McMillan. I want to at least temper expectations and be like, folks, 3 touchdowns in 2 games, that's skewing things a little bit. He has gotten the second most targets in the offense. That matters. He is not playing in the slot like people seem to think. I don't know where that assumption came from, but out of the 29 pass snaps last week, 7 from the slot, but he's still getting 6 to 7 targets. And we've talked about this, Fensty, off air. We'll find receivers on the waiver wire. Finding running backs or not, and that's why we stash backup running backs, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's gotten dry. So right now, McMillan's one of the few that I do have some confidence grabbing and using if need be. MVS is another one, same kind of thing. He's Mr. Drops, but
what about Jalen Coker?
I don't know what to do with Coker.
Xavier Legettis.
Well,
it's Arizona. I mean, I know it's not the easiest matchup, but at the same time, he's coming off a 6-target game. I know he's hit the 4 for 110 and the score, but the 6 targets kind of keeps me intrigued a little bit, to say the least.
I think I had too much of a blind spot. The Leggett injury is very much real, and that does launch Coker's status, right? David Moore's only so much. And
I thought he was going to become someone, bro, but then when Thielen started to become like more and more involved, that ended that. But I picked him up and just stashed him on my bench. What the hell? Just in case.
Why not?
I want to see this guy get 6 to 8 targets, and Bryce Young's looking a little bit better than the garbage he was doing the first couple of weeks of the season. Why the hell not at this point? This team sucks. They're going to need to throw.
It like I said, I kind of had a blind spot. Looking back, I wish I would have thrown Coker in the mix there because I was struggling finding good options. MVS is still out there. He's Mr. Drops, but he gets the targets. Jalen Coker's not Mr. Drops, and he definitely has a lot of excitement to his game. If Legette's out, I like it. I think you are looking at the 6 to 7 targets. If Legette plays, I don't know that you want to use any of them outside of Thielen, right? And it's been disappointing. I'd hoped that Sanders, he was trending in the right direction before the whole injury thing. And then Tremble flashed, and now we're not getting anything from the tight ends. And it's a shame because, to your point, Bryce Young has been playing better. He's been a lot more fun to watch. He's been playing better than the fantasy scores are even indicating. And I don't think he's necessarily a bust. I don't know that he's a starter long-term, but he's not garbage.
Let's talk about other quarterbacks that are going to be starting in this pivotal week, man, because I was telling everybody before that, and we're going to answer, by the way, some of your questions. I see them coming in. BT, we'll get to yours in just a second, but I want to make sure I blanket this topic just so we can all start to get a little bit of a direction, Rich, and that's we got Michael Penix starting, and I'm someone that has a couple of shares of Drake London. I have a share of Darnell Mooney, and I'm very stacked at receiver, so it's very questionable if I'm going to be able to use him, but clearly, this isn't just a the season's over, we're flipping to a younger quarterback. This is, at this point, a team that is fighting for a playoff spot, that is going with an inexperienced quarterback over an experienced veteran that has made some very bad throws. My problem with Penix, and maybe you could give me your expectations, everything you read about Penix, it's almost like what he does and his weaknesses may be similar to Kirk Cousins, throwing into traffic and praying a bunch of Hail Mary balls, but it seems like, and praying that someone from his team comes down with it. I'm kind of worried about, because I know with Penix being pocket passer and everything, the mobility is within the pocket, not outside of it. He's not also just going to take off every single play or every other play. I mean, what are your expectations, man? Because we got freaking Drake London shares here.
But to your point, can't we expect the same output with London as we do Cousins, even though he's got the same headaches?
I'm trying to tell myself that. So
you know what I'm saying?
I'm trying to tell myself that so I don't make a stupid move and just bench him like an idiot, because I don't want to do that.
I don't think I can bench London. Now, I do feel like maybe there was some chemistry with Cousins and Mooney, so I could understand your concerns there. London would have to play for me still. Bijan would have to play for me still. I'd have a real hard time. My expectations for Penix are what we've seen from Cousins the last month, which has been bad, or better. Like, I don't think the Falcons make this move if they truly believe they're going to go backwards. And Kirk Cousins' play has been so poor, yet we're still using these guys, right?
Yeah.
So if we're still using these guys and his play has been poor, and yeah, we have the same concerns, would I play Penix? No, but I wouldn't play Cousins this week either, right? I mean, Cousins has been so bad. I've had him listed, I think, in the drop section the last 2 weeks, right? So I'm okay. I would rather see Penix before I use him. I guess in a super flex, if I'm desperate, sure, why not? It's a starting quarterback. I'll take a starting quarterback over a running back receiver, right? So from that angle, fine. But I'm using London, and I'm cautiously optimistic. The guy got to sit. He's a little older than most of the rookies. He got to sit behind Cousins. Let's see what the young man's got.
Yeah, and Sean, I'm with you there as well. And when I was doing some research a little bit earlier, because I was starting to get naturally at this point in the year paranoid, because you want the consistency, but you want the players to feel comfortable too. But I keep going back to the fact that this team isn't a 2-win team. It's not a 3-win team like the Browns. This is a 500 team that could still win the division.
I would say fighting for a playoff spot. At the very least, look, they're fighting for a playoff spot. If Raheem Morris really thought this was just a lateral move or we were just evaluating talent, I don't think they do it at this point, because they're still fighting for a playoff spot. So you might as look, it's a pressure. This is about as good of a situation you could put Penix in from an evaluation standpoint, right? He sat most of the first year, and for all intents and purposes, 14, 15 games, right? Which in years past would be a full season. So the dude sat for a season. All right, let's be fair about that. Doesn't have the second off season of practice, but he's had a whole season of practice. He's a little older than most of the other rookies, so I'm going to go with a little more seasoned, a little more mature, a little bit better head on his shoulders. He's had the chance to look at all the film of Kurt making bad decisions, so he's had opportunities to learn. He was kind of a high draft pick, right? I mean, there's all sorts of things that point to us going, there's reasons to be cautiously optimistic, and he's going to have, it's do or die. Since it's playoff or not, playoff or bust, it's do or die for him. So not many rookies get put in situations like this. It's going to be kind of fun to watch, in my opinion.
And you know what? Let's look at it face value. It's a good matchup against the Giants.
It is.
A solid matchup for him. So
yeah,
this is
they're
why
setting him up for success.
This is why we do these streams right here, because I'm sure there are a few of you out there, and I'm not making fun of you because we want to help you. Okay, maybe Rich is, but I'm not making fun of you.
I'm not making fun of you. I promise.
Because you know what? We get it. Over tinkering, overthinking. It happens all the time. And we bench our studs in situations like this, and we get burnt for it. But I got to ask you this, Rich. I mean, do you feel similar feelings to the Cleveland Browns side of it? Because not only are we dealing with it with, of course, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, because Jameis Winston, I was saying this before, great for fantasy even when he's not great, because he throws and throws and throws. Keep throwing, baby. But at the same time, when it comes to the Cleveland Browns, and we got a question a little bit earlier, Tillman saw us to make it through the protocol. Njoku, the hamstring injury, is he going to be healthy enough to play? And Jerry Jeudy, this is your 3-win team that pretty much doesn't give a crap and just lost their star running back who had already been out to a broken foot. So how do you feel about Cleveland's offense at this point?
So we talked about it yesterday on the live stream, and I kind of went on a 3-minute rant that Russ and Tyler let me do because I've watched every single Browns game. I know Browns history. I will put my knowledge against what the Browns will do and why against anybody, and that may be being cocky. DTR torpedoes everybody on this offense. Jerry Jeudy, I'm being serious. Jerry Jeudy drops to wide receiver 4-ish. If Tillman plays, I could see Tillman being more of a connection with DTR than Jeudy. He's not going to be the precise timing guy. You're going to be getting more drop-offs. They better hope Njoku can play. Njoku would still be okay-ish. I'm still concerned. The one player I like right now for the Browns is Jerome Ford.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to see volume running. He's going to see volume in the passing attack. DTR is known for checking it down. I am not impressed with DTR as a quarterback. I'm not. The Browns have this obsession, this staff, with wanting something mobile. Joe Flacco and Winston were the antithesis of every other quarterback they've tried to bring in and what they've tried to do. And yet Flacco and Winston are the only ones that have had any success with this offense. So it's been very frustrating. I do think the coaching staff is safe. I don't think they're necessarily making any major moves there. I think they look at it as injuries and some personnel challenges, especially at the offensive line. There was a problem. The offensive line is still a problem. DTR is still very raw. I'm not impressed with what I've seen from him. If you look with what he did last week when he did play, it was very unimpressive, not a lot of fun. So I'm not looking to play Jeudy, and obviously you may have to, right? Our decisions, our rosters are kind of built at this point. It's not like we can go fish in other places. I don't want to use Tillman. Tillman would be more like a 5 or 6 for me with DTR. Njoku, if he plays, more tight end 2. Low end tight end 1. I don't think we can count on the 10 targets. See, that's my problem is with Winston, I felt comfortable getting 8 to 10 targets pretty much to anyone. Here, I don't know if we get 8 to 10 to anyone. We may get 5 to 6 to a bunch of them. I don't know that we get 8 to 10 to any of them. So, like I said, Ford's the only one where I could see 4 to 5 passing targets, 15 touches, 16, 17 touches, depending on the carries. If they're behind, it's going to be Ford in there. And, oh, by the way, get prepared. Donta Foreman's going to see the field, and you're going to be frustrated watching Devonta Foreman run in 2-yard touchdowns and put up 5 or 6 points and do nothing else. Like, I'm just telling you, this is what's going to happen, guys.
That's what he does, man. That's what he does here. But could be interesting for betting, though. I mean, the odds should be nice there. Let me ask you about this, tight end either or. David Njoku, if I'm telling you that he's 100% healthy going into this game, or maybe the pickup of the week, or not the pickup of the week, top 3 popular pickup of the week, Brenton Strange. Who would you start?
I'm going to take heat on this. I'm starting Strange. I posted out as soon as we got notice on Ingram's injury and the articles had already been submitted, I tagged everybody in Discord and said, especially if you have Ingram, go out and get Brenton Strange. I know some people probably have me being crazy and over aggressive, and I understand that, and I'm fine with that. Here's my logic and reasoning. Ingram has been a solid volume guy with Mac Jones or Trevor Lawrence. That hasn't changed. What was really interesting is Brenton Strange saw a small tick up as a backup with Mac Jones even when Ingram was on the field. That tells me there's probably a connection there. Not surprising, the 2s practicing with the 2s. I expect a little bit of that. So Mac clicking with Parker Washington, Mac clicking with Brenton Strange is not shocking to me. Taking a couple of weeks to get on the same page with Brian Thomas, also not shocking to me. He's clearly the best option, and I don't think Mac Jones is stupid. I don't think he's a terrible quarterback. I think he needs some coaching, and I think he can still be adequate. So Brian Thomas is going to get that volume, and in my opinion, Mac will take the easy targets to Strange and Washington or ETN, whatever the play calling is for. Doug Peterson has used tight ends. This is nothing new with his offenses. I feel much more comfortable with Brenton Strange than I do Njoku with DTR. And I know I'll take flat. I had Strange as a tight end 1 last week, and I know it upset some folks, and that's not my intention. I just try to be honest with people with my takes.
So that take is not going to get you heat with anybody, because talking about a new quarterback and you're talking about a guy that's coming off a zillion targets, everything you just said.
In a bad matchup, by the way. The Jets against the tight end had been good. So it's not like it was a smash. This matchup is kind of a smash matchup for him.
Right.
And he'll probably do half of what he did last week, right? Like that's just how things go.
Hey, if he gets into the end zone though, and he does half of what he did last week, fine. Right. It balances out via the points if he has 6 grabs instead of 11.
To tell everybody where I was at last week, I dropped Pitts because I had Pitts still in one league. I dropped tight ends and went all in on Brenton Strange. Now, granted, I'm a Penn State guy. I was high on Strange coming out. And I'd like to remind people, Strange and Ingram are very comparable in size and athleticism. So it's not a shock they drafted the guy. It's not a shock he's coming in and doing the same things.
Yeah, and to everyone's, with what Rich just said, this isn't just he's the next man up here. And Evan Engram was a very popular target on this team. He's the next man up. No, it's the fact that there's a familiarity factor, the connection. Right. And that's something that I really didn't think about much before a couple of years ago. And that's, these backups practice with each other. There is more, and most of the year they are. We don't think about that because we're only thinking about the starters. So there is more comfort and familiarity. And that's why it's not just so random that Strange got 12 targets. I don't even want to ask you this question because this could get you some heat. So I'm gonna ask it.
No, ask it anyway. Look, ask it anyway.
You want me to just ask it?
Ask it anyway. If I think
you're gonna get heat if I ask.
That's fine. That's fine.
Sure?
And yes, ask, because if I'm not comfortable with it, I will say something, Fensty. Ask.
Do you want me to give you an out when I ask you this question?
No, just ask. Let's ask, and we'll figure it out.
Would you start Brenton Strange over Travis Kelce?
Oh, I can't do that.
Okay.
I can't do that. And here's why. Okay. Carson Wentz, if he plays, which we don't know, like if you have Mahomes, there's great streaming options out there, but honestly, I'm probably just grabbing Wentz because I know last minute I can make a switch. They have the same game times, the same kickoffs. Last minute, I can make a switch.
Just wait. Let me stop you there. That is a Saturday game. I'm just letting everybody know.
Right.
This is because again, I'm getting everybody in the motion here because people are watch. You're gonna get someone, dude.
I know.
Game's on Saturday.
I know.
Hell? Don't be that person.
So I like the safety of knowing I don't have to worry about going to the wire and hunting. I don't have to worry about having some of the wire that plays a different day. I know that I have an easy change. And I get that might be a sissy way to play or maybe a too soft way to play if you're trying to win a championship. But if I had Mahomes, I want Wentz right now, even though I don't have a ton of high expectations. But I felt much better after hearing Jeff talk highly of him yesterday. That made me feel better because I had not dug into it. So he had, and there was some great info there, and I highly recommend people check it out. Wentz likes tight ends. Wentz likes big slot receivers. The Chiefs are using Noah Gray as a big slot receiver at times and Travis Kelce as a tight end, and they interchange him at times as well. I can't bench a stud like Kelce when the Chiefs are still playing for a first-round bye right now. The Chiefs have to win 2 of the next 3 games to get the first-round bye. If they do not win 2 of the 3 next 3 games, and Buffalo wins out, the Chiefs don't get that bye. So because of all of the marbles and what Kelce has done when all the marbles are on the field, I can't do it. I will go down in flames watching Brenton Strange outscore Kelce in my starting lineup. If that so happens to work out, then play Strange over Kelce. I can't do it.
All right, so we're on the same page right there. You heard me talk about it a little bit earlier that in all the leagues where I now have, and I do have 1 share of Travis Kelce, I did pick up Strange, but hey, I have 2 flexes, so would it be that Strange pun intended for me? Exactly. You really double tight ending? Yeah. Okay.
Here's a scenario for you. I'm in a league. It's called Paulie's Playoff Challenge. Okay, it's actually full season. It's a charity thing for Alzheimer's. Okay, so it's similar to Scott Fish, multiple leagues, the whole deal, right? But it's very deep. My cousin's helping me out with the roster because I'm managing 2 teams, and so too many teams. So he helps me out. So we're having a discussion last night. Who do we drop? We got Allen, we got Davis, Isaiah Davis, we got Estime, we got Alan Lazard, we got these guys, we got Daniel Bellinger and Brenton Strange. We picked them both up. And I told him, I said, here's the deal. I don't want to drop Strange. Strange is a better flex play right now than Braylon Allen, than Isaiah Davis, than Allen Lazard. I feel comfortable using a starting tight end in a offense and getting me on the low side of 5 to 6 points, on the high side at 10 to 12 points, over throwing darts with some of these other guys that have consistently not even gotten us 5 points. So in deep leagues, I've been known, I beat a guy this year rolling out 3 tight ends.
Wow. I did it once in a league too, a couple of weeks ago. It
happens.
I started like Ferguson, Juwan Johnson, and someone else. It was during like the week 14 killer bye week.
Right.
And I had no one. So I started million flexes in this league. I started 3 tight ends, and it actually worked out really well. So, by the way, the out that I was going to give you on that Travis Kelce question was like, look, we're both on Kelce over Brenton Strange. But the out that I was going to give you was for those that are overly paranoid, would you give them an opening to start Strange over Kelce? Because everything you just said with me, with Travis Kelce, he's still getting the targets. Not the touchdowns. He's got 2. He's still getting the targets. And he's still in that 6 to 8 range. And if he was 3 to 5, I mean, maybe it'd be
different. It'd be different. It'd be different if he was only getting 2 or 3 or 3 or 4, right? And to your point on the touchdowns, Fensty, I think either you and I talked about it last week or we've talked about it off air. Law of averages. It eventually comes back to the mean, right? So all I hear from that is he's still getting the same targets. He just hasn't scored the touchdown. So in my brain, I'm going, touchdowns are coming.
Yep.
Touchdowns are coming. I don't want to miss out on touchdowns. Conversely, Nick Westbrook-Akine was the opposite. We have all those touchdowns, and everybody wants those points, and I'm going, the touchdowns are about to dry up. And I put that in the article the one week and said, look, I still don't mind him because of the targets, but temper your expectations. The touchdowns are probably going to dry up now. And they did. Everything comes back to the mean. And so it's kind of like in sales. You're always told the more no's you get, you're one no closer to a yes.
Right.
Fantasy's the same way. Every week you don't get that touchdown and the guy's getting targets, you're that much closer. You go from a 20% chance of a touchdown to a 30% chance to a 70% chance at some point if they keep not getting touchdowns. You know, it's going to happen. And yes, there's outliers like we saw with Pitts and we've seen with some of these other players. Julio Jones was notorious for it, but that's very rare. I will always play the long game and expect everything to return to the mean.
Also, tough to run on Houston as well. So Kansas City is going to have to throw to move that ball down the field. Very tough running on Houston. So, Rich, we've been talking about a lot of fantasy playoff talk right here. I'm already getting nervous. I'm schwitzing over here. That's sweating in a little Yiddish for all of you because it's semifinal week. These are some big decisions. We've got quarterback changes and we've got injuries that we're dealing with, and we got to figure out who to trust. So for those that might be looking for a quarterback to stream, Rich, to go full circle, because as you were coming on, I was talking about Aaron Rodgers and how he had coming off a good week, coming off a couple of good weeks here. Now he goes up against the Rams, and you're, of course, when it doesn't matter, you're starting to see the Jets passing attack cook a little bit. What are your thoughts about streaming Rodgers for week 16?
I'm okay with it.
Who do you like better?
I don't see, that's where I'm stuck. Like, I don't know that I like. It would be hard for me to use Wentz or Drake May over Rodgers, but I would entertain the idea. I think Drake May is going to be caught in a either blowout or a high-scoring affair, and I expect some hero ball. So I'm kind of leaning on May playing catch-up, May having to rush a little bit. He's been inconsistent on the rushing, but he's been an 18-point guy. I almost feel more safe with May. And I'm not saying you want to be safe in the playoffs either. Like, I don't want to mislead that way, but I almost feel more safe with May over, say, Wentz. I just don't know. You know, I joked, we were talking about Stafford and they're playing in New York. And I said, I don't like old men in the cold. Old men in the cold, I know from experience, don't work well. Right. So there is part of that for me. I'm not expecting weather to really impact anything, but it's January in New York. It's not going to be
on
warm.
The worst field in football.
Oh, I forgot it is a bad field.
It's the worst, man.
I don't doubt it.
It's as crappy as the teams are.
Well, shocker. You know, you are kind of what you're around. You know what I mean? Smart, intelligent people surround themselves with smarter or more intelligent people.
You know what? I was telling a friend this. The best thing to happen to the Jets in the last 14 years since they lost in the AFC Championship to Pittsburgh in 2010 was the New York Sack Exchange documentary that just came out, ESPN 30 for 30. It's a fun hour. It actually makes you like the Jets. Which is pretty much impossible at this point. So that's the best thing.
I'll check it out
with the Jets. You got to check.
I'll check it out. So I could understand the argument, Fensty. When I do my start sit, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be very torn on this group. It's hard for me to trust Rodgers, even coming off a good game. He's had a couple of good games, and he's followed up with stinkers, although he's had a couple of good games lately. So that's been a good thing. They're not talking about shutting him down. That's been a good thing. He has some incredible weapons. I mean, Lazard's the third or fourth target in this offense. They've got talented running backs. It's hard to ignore the Rams completely shutting down Purdy last week. I don't buy the rain was that big of a deal. If you can't play in the rain, what are you doing? Like, this is football. We don't play in domes coming up, and there aren't many colleges with a dome either. So I don't understand this. Well, the ball was wet. It was slippery. Well, ask Bill Belichick about that. They never seem to have problems preparing for that in New England. So to answer your question, I probably would go Rodgers over Wentz and May. I've got May number one in that list. Rodgers is a little more highly owned. Cooper Rush is probably deserving to be in that same conversation given the matchup. So I would consider that. In all fairness, when it's all said and done, Fensty, all four of these quarterbacks are probably being separated by 2 or 3 points.
Right. Yeah. So it's, in a way, you're taking the same risk when it comes to some of these guys in this group. Hopefully you don't have to stream is pretty much what we're saying.
Yeah, and I put that in the article. If you're streaming, this is bottom of the barrel, man. I mean, you're a desperation. And I'll say this, when you're looking at players like these quarterbacks we're talking about, play the one that's not going to upset you. Like, you look and say, if I bench Rodgers and he goes off, I'm going to be pissed off, then play Rodgers, right? Yeah. If you're going to be like, well, because I'm the type of guy, I'd rather play my guy and be wrong than play the guy I feel I have to play and it be wrong. I don't mind playing my guy and being wrong and seeing the guy that I should have played on the bench getting points. That doesn't make me tilt. What makes me tilt is when I bench the guy that I wanted to play for whatever logic or reasoning. I second guess because of somebody's rankings, or I second guess because of weather, or I second guess because of whatever. That's what tilts me. That's what makes me salty. I'm still salty about Scott Fish because I did something I don't normally do and I'm mad about it. And I knew better. So we've talked about this game is supposed to be fun. We do it for fun. Yeah, the money's nice, but most of us do it for fun and money. Do something that's not going to piss you off, is I guess what I'm getting at.
Well, Fantasy Arnold loves you there, Rich, because you were actually the one that turned him on to Brenton Strange, which is why you're the streaming master at fantasyguru.com. I'm changing your title. Rich Maletto, as of this moment, is no longer the guard dog of fantasyguru.com. He is now the streaming master when it comes to fantasy football. So, Rich, congratulations on the title change. And
I appreciate that.
And I'll just say this. I'm seeing a piece of news come across that, according to reports, Patrick Mahomes, there is a chance. We're saying there's a chance.
He's going
to play.
I knew
on
it.
Saturday.
When you saw
yesterday.
Yeah. I would say when you saw the practice report yesterday, Fitzy, what did you say to yourself?
I rolled my eyes and was just like, "Can you stop taking us for a ride?" Because if they were gonna not start him, or if I thought that it was a lock that they weren't gonna start him, I mean, why the hell is he practicing fully?
The wife and I talked about this. She goes, he must have loose joints. I said, I know he does. He's referenced that. I said, he also obviously has a high pain tolerance. I said, when I saw the report, I rolled my eyes and I said out loud, shocker, because this happened the last time he had a high ankle sprain. Oh my God, it's done. And he came out in the field hobbling around on one leg and played, right? Yeah. I mean, and played basically the rest of the year. So when I saw the practice report, and that's why I have the angle of, if you have Mahomes, get Wentz. Because you have the assurance of, if we get late game inactive, it's a wet field, he slipped and retweaked it or some crap. You don't have to go hunting and worry about crap. Why didn't I grab May when I had the chance? Now I have to grab Rodgers. Just grab Wentz, because somebody who's playing against you is probably going to try to block you anyway. Just grab Wentz, and this way it's a non-issue. The moment you get news he's active, you can drop Wentz and pick up a backup running back. The moment you find out he's not, you put Wentz in and you move on.
Couple more questions for you, Rich. And again, hanging out as I do every Wednesday on Fantasy Sports Daily with Rich Maletto, Rich the Jerk Maletto. Why he's called that, I have no idea.
I did that on the coaching stream too. There was a couple of things that got said. I said, I know I'm a big jerk. So
yeah, you're not. You're a nice guy. You are a nice guy. Rich, who are some defenses that you're thinking about streaming that could still be on the wire that we should put our entire season on the line for?
I don't want to put my whole season on the line, but I got to tell you, the Raiders defense and their matchup's not a bad one, man. The Colts are an interesting one. I don't like the Commanders as much this week, but I'm not as scared about them. It being a division game, I give a little bump to defenses in general. I understand it's a terrible matchup on paper, but Hurts has thrown some picks. He hasn't been passing well, and the Commanders' defense has definitely taken a step forward the last month. Again, just like the Vikings, imagine that. Defensive guys, defensive gurus, and Dan Quinn and Mike Zimmer, all of a sudden getting their defenses playing dramatically better the last month of the season. Like it's a weird pattern we should predict or something. Brian Flores, did he maybe do that a little bit? So I'm not as panicky on the Commanders as some are. So I still have them listed. I drew a blank, Fensty, because I had so many listed.
I got one for you that you haven't mentioned. What about Atlanta? We talked about them last.
Oh, they are in the article. Atlanta, good call out. Yeah. They were the top one in the article. That's a good call out, Fensty. I did. Atlanta's a good one. They've been playing that front seven's been playing tougher. I'm good with Atlanta. Again, matchups. When it comes to defenses, if you can't get one of the top defenses, i.e. Pittsburgh, i.e. Minnesota, something like that, attack bad offenses, attack backup quarterbacks. What about
you trust? Joe wants to know you trust in Baltimore.
Here's the deal on the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game. I'd play either defense. Pray the ambulances don't come out. You're going to have a turnover on both sides of the ball. You're going to have a couple of sacks on both sides of the ball. You're probably going to get a fumble on both sides of the ball. And we're probably going to I'll set the over-under on game stoppage for injuries at 7.
Brian Thomas Jr. is actually watching the stream, Rich. You must be very good friends with the Jaguars.
I wish, right?
Yeah. So BTJ wants to know Minnesota or Arizona defense.
I trust Minnesota more. I know that they were talking about how much they're giving up on the ground lately, but give me Minnesota over Arizona any day of the week. Won't even think twice.
Okay, and then referee Sean Hockley also watching the stream here, Fantasy Sports Daily. The celebrity wing is open. The Titans, what do you think of their defense this week?
They are listed in the article. They have had a solid, nothing great, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 8 points, something like that the last month or so. And they are facing who is it, the Jags?
No, they're facing the Raiders at this point.
Raiders, I'm sorry. I knew they were facing
the Raiders.
Okay, the Jags are facing the Raiders. That was another defense. Again, why? Raiders are going to give up sacks. I expect some turnovers. Tennessee is playing Indy. I don't trust Anthony Richardson. Yeah, he can burn him, but he's probably good for an interception or two. I'm good with the Titans.
Rich Maletto, the Fantasy Bosco. Give him a follow on X at Fantasy Bosco, the streaming master of fantasyguru.com when it comes to fantasy football. And you'll be able to catch his article a little bit later on the site. Rich, what else is coming out for you when it comes to content throughout the rest of the week?
So like you said, streamers will drop later today. I am going to update it. I'm going to go do a write-up on Jaylen Coker and get that added in there. So hat tip Fensty. Hat tip to Fantasy Arnold. Really appreciate it, man. I try to go out and not waste tagging everybody. I just felt like that with as bad as tight end has been, that was a great out for us. I know not everybody's in agreement. I'm not trying to make waves with it, just being honest with folks. We will have start sit that comes out Friday. I may tweak that a little bit. I haven't decided. I'm kind of working on it. It seems to be helping. People like it, but I don't want to confuse people, and I'm fearful that's been happening. So that's a work in progress. And then, of course, being in Discord, answering questions. And look, we're getting a lot of questions right now in Discord. So hat tip to all our members. Y'all must have done well because this is playoff time, and we're getting a ton of questions.
I almost got really pissed off just now with what Joe wrote. So what I missed about a quarter of what you said, Rich, because go Cross, go Crusaders here. Thought Joe was trolling me and talking about Holy Cross, the college rivals to my alma mater, American University in Washington, D.C. in the Patriot League. No Holy Cross at this point. AU, rah, once an Eagle, always an Eagle. But he's referencing Jaylen Coker, so it's okay. Final question here, one more, Rich, and then we're heading out for the day. Bench one, yeah, no Holy Cross, Joe. Shakir, Cup, Judy, Brian Thomas Jr., bench one.
Oh, not even close. Judy doesn't deserve to sniff this lineup with the options you have there with DTR at quarterback. And I'll die on that sword.
All right, well, thank you very much. My name is Justin Fensterman, along with Rich Maletto. Give me a follow at Fensty Sports on X. Find all of my work at fantasyguru.com. No NBA Watch Along Wednesday. No article tonight. No NBA games. But the latest chapter of Fensty's Basketball Diaries podcast will be out at fantasyguru.com, part of the Elite Plus network. Ray Flowers back tomorrow, same time, same place, same channel, right here, noon Eastern, Fantasy Sports Daily, right here on Fantasy Guru.